Hello, I'm Bill Hurl, President and CEO of Imunomic Therapeutics. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about clinical studies. What are they? How are patients enrolled? And the very important role that the individuals play in developing new drugs. So clinical studies are generally ways that we take new therapeutic concepts and test them in a human trial setting. So volunteers will contribute to this in a very important way in that they are treated with new, presumably very exciting, progressive types of therapeutics. And in return for receiving this treatment, we get to learn a little bit about how well, hopefully, a new drug works. So a clinical study is really broken down into three parts. The first, phase 1, is generally a safety study where a small group of patients is given a new drug and it's tested to see that it's safe in this population after being exhaustively tested in laboratory animal and model systems to show that it was safe there. Then we test in humans and in a small group. And we also try to see if the drug is promising and is generating some sort of clinical benefit for the patients. If phase 1 is successful, then we move into phase 2, where we enroll a larger number of subjects and do what's called a dose ranging study. So we look at treating the patients with either different numbers of doses or over different periods of time, so we understand what's the best way to treat these subjects, as well as we, of course, monitor their disease for progression and for survival, especially in cancer patients. And then if that's successful, we move to phase 3, which is a pivotal study that is designed to determine if the drug will pass muster for efficacy and safety and be suitable for approval by the FDA. Patients are the key cog in clinical studies, and that they should easily sign up for clinical studies. Unfortunately, less than 5% of cancer patients actually contribute in clinical studies. And it's not clear if because it is an unknown that they have people who choose not to pursue this, or they don't really understand the clinical trial process because they're aware that in many cases, particularly as studies progress, they may include a placebo arm. And often when people understand that there's a placebo arm, what they think that means is that they're not getting any treatment at all. But that's not correct. Our study for glioblastoma, we do have a placebo arm, and the placebo arm patients get treated exactly the same as they would be treated if they were getting standard of care from their doctor without the extra drug. So the only difference between the placebo arm and the test arm is that the test arm is receiving an additional drug therapeutic, whereas the placebo arm receives the normal standard of care. Now, some of you may say, well, I really don't know if I would want to participate in a study that has a placebo arm, and that's certainly understandable. And everybody needs to really think about what their choices are when they consider enrolling in a clinical study. Even, for example, if you were interested in enrolling in a COVID-19 study, you might get the vaccine and you might have got a placebo. In that case, they would have given you saline. But this is a very important component of a good science study because you need to be able to compare your treatment versus what's currently being done to see if there's a difference. Certainly, we don't want to be giving out very expensive drugs if you don't know that they work. So it's a real challenge for the clinical researcher, for the companies that are sponsoring the research, and for the patients to understand all these variables that are going on in a clinical study. If you were interested in a clinical study, or if you were a patient in for glioblastoma who was interested in a TAC2, the process is to contact the study coordinator at the facility, say at the University of Florida, and then you get an interview and a pre-enrollment meeting with the doctor, and they will go over all the parameters of the study. And you would get a brochure that explains all the risks of the study and everything that's involved. And you can drop out of a study at any time. Just because you start doesn't mean you have to finish. And so whether it's a study for Imunomic Therapeutics or any of our other colleagues in the space, I encourage you to look for these available studies, particularly in the field of cancer. We need to be looking for the most interesting and exciting technologies and therapeutics to help you fight your disease. For Imunomic Therapeutics, if you're interested in the clinical study in glioblastoma, we have a travel program and we'll fly you to either Duke or the University of Florida so that you can meet with the doctors and consider the study. And of course, if you decide to enroll in the study, we'll provide you with transportation for you and a family member, as well as all your meals and lodging for the duration of your participation in the study. We feel it's very important that we appreciate the role that our patients play, and we thank all of you that have participated in all clinical studies. Some of the drugs that are very popular today, including drugs such as Keytruda and Opdivo, which you see on the news quite a bit, involved enrollment of hundreds, if not thousands, of clinical subjects who went through that process and provided the critical data to show that these were life-saving drugs. So if you're interested in learning more about clinical trials, please visit our website at www.immunomics.com, click on clinical trials, and read about what's involved. And if you're interested in looking for other diseases other than are covered by Immunomic Therapeutics, go to clinicaltrials.gov. It is the reservoir of trials that are being conducted worldwide, and you can see if they have something that might be suitable for you. Please take care of yourself, and if you need additional help with your treatment of your disease, look into these options. They could save your life. Thank you.